about a story, and it's a story that involves the legacy of one man in particular, who's Bishop Vesey. But it's a story that involves a town and its people, so we're all part of this story. And when you unravel the layers that make a place what it is, you sometimes find that there are some key people in history that leave a legacy. They're key place shapers. And Birmingham's got a number of these people. It's like Chamberlain with the development of the city centre, Matthew Bolton with Handsworth, there's Cadbury in Bourneville. But in Sutton Coldfield you need to go back much earlier to the 1400s, and it's John Harmon who became Bishop Vesey that has left the biggest legacy in our town. And John Harmon was born 550 years ago. He was born at Moorhall Farm, very near to here. So roughly it's really the home patch of Bishop Vesey. Vesey was the son of a farmer, and he went on to become a town planner, a developer, a visionary, a bishop, and a statesman. Henry VIII is also part of our story because he befriended Bishop Vesey, and he bestowed a great favour upon him and upon Vesey's hometown of Sutton Coldfield. I suggest that this story is relevant to us today because I believe that we can learn a great deal from the genius of Bishop Vesey for the regeneration of Sutton Coldfield today. Vesey made a connection between town planning and development and the marketing of a place, how a town presents itself to the world. And also, he realised that you need to develop a town in a way that makes it fit for purpose, so that it meets the needs of its residents, but also the expectations of potential investors. Vesey realised that a town needs to present itself in a way that inspires confidence. And he completely transformed Sutton Coldfield, and he did that by maximising the potential of the place and by addressing the needs of the people. And the impetus for all of Vesey's regeneration activity came in the early 1500s, when he returned back to Sutton from London, and he found that the town had gone into serious economic and social decline. And this really grieved him. He knew what the potential of the place was though. Sutton was surrounded by this great forest, a vast chase, and yet Sutton people couldn't take firewood from that forest, let alone hunt the animals there to eat. He also realised that Sutton had got potential because it was located right in the middle of England, and yet he saw that it didn't have a marketplace, and that its streets were paved, and that it lacked bridges to make proper connections. So even though it was in the middle of England, it was actually had poor connections. So Vesey set about rebuilding Sutton Coldfield, and he was going to rebuild it. He did rebuild it in a strategic way with a long-term vision. And his strategy, as I say, addressed people's needs, and it maximised the potential of the place. And everything that Vesey did with his strategy, he did with excellence. The most prestigious status that a town could have then was to be a royal town. So that's what Vesey went for. And people would have ridiculed him for that at the time, because in the early 1500s, Sutton Coldfield didn't look like a royal town, and it wouldn't have felt like a royal town, because people were increasingly living in poverty at the time. Nevertheless, Vesey began to strategise about how he could make Sutton Coldfield worthy of a royal town status. So he brought together a number of strategic projects which were amalgamated into a royal charter for Sutton Coldfield. Henry VIII signed the royal charter in 1528, and all of its decrees, including the name Royal Town of Sutton Coldfield, were decreed to be forever. But Vesey didn't just produce a strategy, he also delivered it, because he became very wealthy as the Bishop of Exeter, and he funneled the riches of Devon back to delivering his projects in Sutton Coldfield. So he was never very popular in Devon. This royal charter wasn't just about transforming the town, it was also about transforming the people, because it gave them incredible rights and privileges. I've identified 7 key principles which I believe underpin Vesey's strategy for Sutton. The first one was about investing in sustainability. He was really ahead of his time with this. It's about investing in nature and the relationship of people with nature as well. So out of that vast forest, he created Sutton Park. But he also gave people in Sutton rights over Sutton Park, so people could take their firewood from the park, and they could hunt whatever animals they wanted for food, including stags and hares. And only nobles would have had such a privilege at that time. The second principle in his strategy for the town was about invest in a positive image. So he secured the royal town status, the most prestigious image that the town could have. The third principle for his strategy was invest in public realm. So he used his own money to create a marketplace for Sutton, and he paved the streets and he built bridges to connect the town to get better connections with London as well. The fourth principle was invest in design excellence. Vesey never went for the cheapest option. He always invested in quality so that his projects would last for a long time. So when he built houses for the poor, he used the best quality cut stone. And some of those houses are still standing and providing homes for people now 500 years later. When he built a bridge over the River Tame at Water Orton, before Shakespeare was born, again he used the best materials and the best design, and that bridge is still accommodating vehicular traffic today. Fifth principle in his strategy was invest in education. So he created the grammar school, and thousands of students have been through there and received an excellent education. The sixth principle was about investing in local decision making. And Vesey created a form of local government in Sutton so that Sutton people could control their own future. They could make decisions locally rather than having decisions imposed upon them from afar. And finally, he invested in the needs of people, especially the needs of the poor. And he did it in a way that would enhance the quality of life for everyone. So he created an endowment fund in which he put his own land and property, and that fund is still in existence today. And that's Sutton Coldfield Municipal Charities, which has £40 million to invest in Sutton Coldfield and its people. That Royal Town name and those strategic projects created a lot of confidence in Sutton Coldfield as a place to live, and a place to visit, a place to invest. And for over 500 years, people would come to Sutton Coldfield for their annual holidays. They'd come to Sutton in the park, right up until the 1960s. People tend to think that Sutton lost its Royal Town name in 1974 when it became part of Birmingham. But that isn't actually correct. It was in 1887 when an Act of Parliament created the Borough Council of Sutton Coldfield. When the new Borough Council was created, they should have applied to the Lord Chancellor to renew the Royal Town name, but it never happened. When Sutton did become part of Birmingham in 1974, again they could have applied to renew the Royal Town name, but again it didn't happen. It's worth noting that Royal Carnarvon in Wales, when they were abolished as a borough council in 1974, they did apply to keep their royal prefix, and they got it. I think now we've got three options for the royal status of Sutton. The first option is we can just carry on as existing, a kind of pretend royal town. That's not very authentic. And actually the Lord Chancellor and even Buckingham Palace have advised the council's lawyers that Sutton can't legally use that royal town prefix until such time as the Crown gives permission. The second option is we could just move on and just leave it to history that Sutton was a royal town and just be a pleasant suburban satellite of Birmingham. But that doesn't honour our heritage, and it ignores the fact that Vesey has left this incredible legacy, and also Henry VIII. And it also misses the point that we need a lot of investment in Sutton. We need investment in the town centre, and we need investment in Mere Green as well. And just as Vesey used that royal town brand to bring investment in the 1500s, so perhaps again it could be used to bring investment for the town centre and for Mere Green. So the third option is, can we again become an authentic royal town? And there are certain benefits with that. It could add value to property, to homes. It could add to the attractiveness of Sutton as a business address. It would cost some money to put back the historic royal town signs, but it's a relatively small amount. And let's just be clear about the privilege that it is to be a royal town. There are only two other royal towns in England. Royal Leamington Spa became royal in 1838, and Tunbridge Wells became royal in 1909. But remember, Sutton became a royal town in 1528. It's England's original royal town. I'd hoped that perhaps Sutton might be the first town in 100 years to be reinstated as a royal town. But you might have heard that the Prime Minister announced last month in the House of Commons